Cyber Innovations in the Private Sector highlights case studies and the latest industry trends from private vendors. Explore innovative solutions, success stories, and exclusive insights from industry leaders. Stay ahead with the cutting-edge developments driving the industry forward.
Today on CyberSecTV, we speak with Dominique Tessier, head of the Cybersecurity Focus Group at the European Champions Alliance, on strengthening Europe's cybersecurity ecosystem.
The first motivation for creating this mapping is, to say it bluntly, because nothing existed. Nothing existed, which meant that cybersecurity vendors in diverse parts of Europe didn't know each other. And if you want really to develop an ecosystem, the first point is really to have members of this ecosystem know each other. We want to ensure that by knowing each other, vendors can have an opportunity to team up if they want. It's also an opportunity to give insights to many stakeholders. Think, for instance, of investors. Investors are always looking for new companies popping up, but maybe they don't know the ecosystem as well as we do, so we provide them an occasion to visit it. The same would go for integrators. And finally, I would say also, I think it's important. We think it is important to show that there is an European cybersecurity ecosystem with its dynamism, and we try to make it think the members of this ecosystem think they belong to a community. Innovation in Europe, you find innovation everywhere among cybersecurity vendors in Europe. What strikes is really that it's an ecosystem which is present everywhere, which is dynamic everywhere. Maybe I would say that on some domains we have probably more innovation popping up. Let me quote two domains. OT security, for instance, which is something rather new and which is very, very important, because you imagine that if a hacker disrupts an industrial system, it stops a factory and it costs millions per hour. And the second element I would like to quote is AI. AI, we know AI for what it means, but sometimes we don't think that AI systems are full of cybersecurity holes. And to fix that, really, you need to be innovative. So I would say that's some domains where you can see innovation popping up. If I wanted to be a little more pessimistic, which I am not usually, but I would say that on the other hand, you sometimes find cybersecurity vendors which are in fact doing something which has been already done somewhere else. That's another reason for the mapping. We want that each vendor can see who are my peers. Are they doing the same thing, or am I doing something new which they have not yet done? We structure it based on 16 categories. Our reference includes 16 categories because cybersecurity is a very diverse world. For instance, I mentioned just a minute ago OT security, industrial system security. It's not at all the same thing as, for instance, data protection or cybersecurity governance, etc., etc. And if you want vendors really be able to compare to each other, you need to have some sort of classification. Someone who is developing and selling software about data protection will not be, at least at the beginning, will not be interested in comparing to an OT security vendor. That was the reason why this classification. The second reason is that it's for people to be able to see where they can best contribute. They also need to be classified in a category. Let me come back to OT security. I think it's important simply because industry is more and more automatizing, and connected, and is connected. Factories are now connected to the world. They can be threatened, they can be hacked, and I think, as I said, that if a factory, for instance, not to quote a fleet of automotives, a fleet of vehicles, if that is hacked, the consequences might be very, very important. Think that you can disrupt a country if you stop its electricity grid, for instance, or if you damage its water supplies, which also are managed by IT systems which can be hacked. So I would say this domain is very important. A second domain I would quote is identity and access management. We all know that when cybersecurity began to pop up, we had all the image of the fortress with the walls, and so you wanted to secure the doors into the walls and prevent any strange comers to come in. And now we know that is totally irrelevant, because first, the threat can come from inside. Second, the companies are so extended that there are no more walls. So you have to find another paradigm for cybersecurity, and this one is what people call zero trust. You don't trust if you don't know who you are speaking to or with whom device you are exchanging. So identity and access management, very important. Not only it's very important, but it probably will be challenged in the coming months due to, all the identity forgery and fakes that AI can create. A third domain I would like to quote is cryptography. We know that cryptography will be totally bewildered by the arrival of quantum computing capabilities, which are able to break the classical encryption algorithm. So there is now a trend to move to what we call post-quantum cryptography able to resist quantum computing attacks. So I think this is also an important point where you have many vendors now working in Europe. And I would say also threat management. Threat management, is really the core of cybersecurity. Am I attacked? How can I stop the attack? How can I be sure I am attacked and it's not simply someone who has, forgotten his or her credentials? Is it really an attack? We have now companies working on threat management for years and years. We have good systems in Europe, also in other parts of the world. I think all these systems will be totally reshuffled by AI, because AI will probably give the defenders, us, the ability to detect and to make sure something is really an attack in much more quickly than with the classical threat management systems, and also probably with better results, which means that all the amount of software with all the big companies, mostly US companies, which have designed during years and years threat management software, all this might be disrupted by the arrival of AI capabilities. AI will certainly serve hackers, but AI will also serve defenders. And this is a domain where we will see much move and cards being reshuffled, which might be a good opportunity for Europe. I think what's interesting in the European ecosystem is the fact that it's very dynamic, the fact that it covers every domain of cybersecurity. If you take 16 categories, you have no holes. You have vendors present in these categories in many, many different places, many different countries. So I think in terms of creativity, of dynamism, of innovation capabilities, we have all that in the European cybersecurity industry. Where I would say we have a problem is the size of the company and their fragmentation. One thing that struck us when realizing this mapping is the issue of the size. Bluntly speaking, take the 10 biggest US vendors. and take the 10 biggest European vendors and compare the sum of their yearly revenues. The ratio is exactly, or is a little more than 10 to 1. US companies a little more than 10 times bigger than their European counterparts. And why is it important? Because, cybersecurity is a domain where you have to pour much money into R&D. You cannot stop your R&D on December 31st at the end of the year and saying, okay, I have finished my job. No. Next year, as of January 1st, you will have to increase your R&D budget because threats are evolving, new threats appear. So if you want to sustain this effort, you need to have money, of course, and human resources, but again, money to pay the human resources. And if you are a too small a company, it means that you will be running year after year, running after budget issues, constraints, and you cannot support really your R&D effort, not to talk of, what is necessary in cybersecurity, which is commercial presence, marketing, lobbying, etc., etc. We need to do something about the fragmentation of European cybersecurity. And we owe that also to customers. When you ask CISOs, European CISOs, why don't you take European vendors? If they are sincere, probably they will answer something like, I would like. Sometimes I take European vendors and I would like to take them as many times as possible. But many of them are niche players. And I am a CISO. My job is not to integrate niche players offering. My job is to protect my company. So I go to vendors which have a broader functional scope, and I don't find that as often as I would like among European vendors. What are the main barriers? You can quote probably 3-4 of them. The first one is demand. As I mentioned, CISOs are absolutely convinced of the interest of taking European vendors. They know that probably they protect their data much better than American would do, but they are disturbed by the fact that so many European vendors are niche players. So we need to do something on demand. It's a fact that if you take the public sector, administrations, governments, governmental services, and so on and so forth, many of them do not order from the European cybersecurity industry. We need to do something about that. There are rumors that the EU Commissions, after years of discussion, might do something to promote procurement from European vendors in cybersecurity. That would be a good news. That would really be a good news. The second point is financing. It happens that the European financing system, I refer to the private equity investment funds. It happens that they have smaller pockets than their US counterparts. And that's an issue because we are good in Europe to fund the first stages, and the years when companies develop their product, establish themselves on the market, and make or not their proofs. We are not good at development and scaling stage, which means that European money, European saving is financing the first years, which are the most risky years, the new companies, and then the success is harvested by US investors to which European financing vehicles sell at the level of Series C or Series D. That's really an issue. That's exactly what Mario Draghi was exposing in his report. We need to do something to have really a true European capital market, unified capital market, because that's very important for making sure that Europe can finance the development and the scaling of companies after the first phase. What I would like to see in Europe, I would say we have some very good regulation frame, especially in cybersecurity. I mean, with NIS2, we have a good regulation frame. With the Cyber Resilience Act, we have a good regulation frame as well. So that's not where the problem remains. The problem really stays when you turn to industry. We have regulation, we don't have industrial policy. Industrial policy means you need to have a lever on procurement, you need to have a financial lever. You can imagine that we could have a much better European financement system if it was more unified, which is not the case so far. I think maybe also we could make some progresses in terms of sustaining innovation by having a better fluidity between academics and the industry. In cybersecurity, I would say the vendors. In some countries, you have this kind of fluidity much better than in other countries in Europe. For instance, in the Netherlands, you have a very good continuity between the public research and vendors in cybersecurity. This is less the case, for instance, in France. I must say, being French myself, so we probably would need to make some efforts there. And also, we absolutely need to have a single European market for digital in general and cybersecurity in particular. Too often we have national markets. We have a German market, we have a Spanish market, a French market, which means that in country X, they would say, okay, if I find a good vendor of my country, I will probably choose it. If not, I will immediately go for American solutions, where they could consider French, German, and Spanish solutions as well. The European Commission has just announced, the famous 28th regime, unified pan-European regime for creating new companies the project is called officially EU Inc. It has been announced. It needs now to be discussed by European Parliament and Council. I hope it will really fly very soon, because that would help. Having the same frame to build a company. If I register in France, I am automatically registered in Germany, Spain, Italy, and so on and so forth. That would be an help. It won't be the end of the story. It won't be enough to create a true single European digital market, but it would be a good step forward. Private and public collaboration. Let me give you an example which goes exactly the other way, the bad way. That's not about cybersecurity, that's about what you call collaborative suites, the equivalent of Microsoft 365. We now see plenty of initiatives across Europe to develop sovereign collaborative suites. And what strikes me is that even though you have very good private offering in France, for instance, in Germany, for instance, you still have some public institutions that develop their own sovereign collaborative. If I come back to the example of cybersecurity, I mean, advanced detection of threats, of new threats, that's typically a domain where public and private efforts should converge. That's probably the spirit, by the way. In Europe, you have now a network of CERTs, of whatever the way you call them, organizations which are sorts of watchdogs about new threats. There is some kind of networking between them and private companies which are also detecting and analyzing new threats. That's something which we should promote absolutely. We cannot waste time in dividing our efforts to detect threats. So that's a point which is really very important. It's true that cybersecurity has been quoted by many governments, presidents, institutions, and so on and so forth. But I'm not sure that it has been seen as so strategic an issue. Maybe the Ukrainian, the attack of Russia against Ukraine 4 years and and some days now ago. Maybe it has changed a little the spirit, because people have seen, institutions have seen that we are now facing hybrid war, and that cyber attacks were parts of warfare. We can see also now with a little bit in the Middle East. There is the sensation, there is the intellectual comprehension that cybersecurity is an element of sovereignty. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe the comprehension does not go far enough. Cybersecurity is de facto the weapon we have to, or one of the weapons we have to keep our data safe. And so far in Europe, I would say that the issue of data, the issue of who owns the data, are we able to protect our data, or are we simply letting them go anywhere? Time is passing, and this understanding, this awareness about the importance of data has been rather weak for years before, even if the mood is changing now. And I would connect the question of data and the question of cybersecurity and say it's really time that all stakeholders recognize the importance of cybersecurity, not only for sovereignty, but even for the continuity of their own business. If you let people steal your data, you do not protect your business as you should do. That's as simple as that. So really, I would say that we still need to promote the importance of cybersecurity and data protection as a key element of sovereignty, both for public and private actors. I think we have the basis in Europe. We have good companies, we have talents, we have good innovation, we have good researchers. So, in terms of technical abilities, we have everything we need in cybersecurity. I would really hope that these forces will be able to team up and to move from the fragmented landscape we have now to a landscape where we would have a dozen European champions. We do not want to copy the American model. We do not want to have, some sort of oligopoly with 2, 3, 4 companies totally dominating the market. I am ready to have more than that, but we need really to have champions which are able to propose customers with larger enough functional scope in their offering, and which are able to compete on par at worldwide level. And that's really the hope I have, is that we stop fragmentation and we come from fragmentation to teaming up and build up some European champions. With the emergence of new technologies such as AI, which, as I said, will totally reshuffle the cards in some domains as threat management. If you take also other domains as OT security, where oppositely to what is the status in IT security, you don't have worldwide leaders. You don't have big champions as you have in threat management, which are in general US champions. So it's there you have really an open world in OT security, where European can really take their destiny in their hands. But again, that means that European vendors, which in OT security, as in other domains, are rather niche players, they should think of team up and unite. What's really I'm calling for is consolidation of European cybersecurity industry. I think that doesn't mean that we'll stop the entrepreneurship spirit, which is very important in this innovative domain. But you can have large entrepreneurs. You do not need to stay small all your life to be an entrepreneur. The mapping is now finalized, so we will have a paper version which will be distributed in Cyber Lille in something like, I think it's a little less now than 2 weeks from now. And of course, we will distribute it online as well